I woke up in the middle of the night to find both of my wives standing at the foot of my bed, staring at me. The strange part wasn't just that they were both there, it was that they were identical. Same face. Same voice. Same everything. But I only married one of them first. It started when I met Ada, my first wife. She was beautiful, with a smile that could make a man forget his troubles. She came from a humble family, and I, being a wealthy man, thought she was the perfect wife. She cooked, cleaned, and cared for me like no one else. Life was good with Ada. But I wanted more. In my culture, it wasn't unusual for a man to take more than one wife, but I knew Ada wouldn't agree. So, I didn't tell her. When I met Amora during a trip to the next village, she reminded me so much of Ada. It was eerie how alike they looked, but Amora had this boldness that excited me. I told myself it was fate. I married her in secret, built her a house far from Ada, and visited her when I could. For months, I lived two lives. Ada in one house, Amora in another. They never crossed paths. Or so I thought. One day, I noticed strange things happening. Ada would ask questions that didn't make sense. "Why did you come home late last week?" she'd say, even though I'd been with her the entire time. Or she'd mention food she cooked that I didn't remember eating. Amora started doing the same. She'd call me out for not liking a dish she'd never made before or act annoyed about things I never said. At first, I thought I was just mixing things up between them, but then it got worse. One night, I came home to Ada's house, and the food on the table was the same meal Amora cooked for me the night before. I asked her how she knew I liked it, and she just smiled. "A wife knows her husband," she said, but something about the way she looked at me made my chest tighten. Then Amora began mentioning Ada by name. At first, I thought she was guessing. "Do you think Ada does this for you too?" she said once when I complimented her cooking. My heart nearly stopped, but I laughed it off, pretending I didn't hear her. The truth hit me when I found a piece of Ada's scarf in Amora's house. I knew Ada didn't own anything like it. I asked Amora about it, and she said, "Your first wife forgot it when she came to visit." That's when I started to panic. I confronted Ada, but she didn't react the way I expected. She just smiled and said, "Husband, you brought this on yourself." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the things they said and how they both seemed to know everything. It didn't make sense. I decided to leave town for a few days, clear my head, and figure out what to do. When I came back, both Ada and Amora were waiting for me in my living room. Together. Their faces were the same. Their voices, the same. I stammered, trying to explain myself, but they just laughed. The sound was cold and echoed in a way that didn't feel human. "Did you think you could trick us?" Ada, or maybe it was Amora, asked. "You married the same woman twice," the other one said. I didn't understand what they meant. My head spun. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "We are the same," they said together. "Two faces of the same spirit. You thought you could play with us, but we were always watching." I realized then that this wasn't normal. This wasn't just two angry women. This was something else entirely. My skin felt cold, and my knees buckled. They stepped closer, speaking in unison. "You wanted more than what you had. Now you will live with us forever." The last thing I remember before blacking out was their laughter, sharp and endless, like a storm tearing through the night. When I woke up, I was alone in the house. But it wasn't my house anymore. Everything looked old, as if decades had passed. Dust covered the furniture, and the windows were boarded shut. I tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. I've been here ever since. Every night, I hear their footsteps outside the room. Sometimes, they whisper through the walls. Sometimes, they laugh. I don't know if I'll ever get out. Maybe this is what I deserve. But if you ever meet a woman with a smile too perfect, don't take her for granted. And for the love of everything, don't marry her twice.